Hey everyone, today I wanted to talk a little bit about postmodernism. I don't want to get muddled in definitions of postmodernism. Some people say it doesn't really mean anything now because it's used so often for so many different contexts. In the sense I want to use it today, I really just mean postmodernism as in like post-Marxism in the academic left. So if modernism in the academic left is Marxism, then postmodernism in the academic left is post-Marxism, or critical theory beyond Marx, or with a very serious critique of Marx and similar socialist, what they refer to as grand narratives. So I found this interesting piece online by someone named Robin Peignot. Don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but it's titled "Whatever Happened to the Factory," and this came out in February of this year. Basically, the piece makes an overall good argument for let's see specifically what I wrote. Makes a good argument for the broader extraction of individual labor outside of work and employment and like the traditional working class. Basically showing how individuals in our society outside of their workplace are still being used for the extraction of their value, their labor basically extracting value for the capitalists. So still basically the individual outside of the workplace is directly tied into capitalism's like developmental core. And I thought this was really interesting, pointing to, things like social media and advertising and marketing about, the cliche lines of like, if you're not, buying the product, then you are the product. This is something worthwhile, worth analyzing. My main concern, though, is the abandonment of the worker-employee as a revolutionary subject against the capitalist owner or employer. Basically, what I mean here is Robin makes the argument that there really is no longer a revolutionary subject, and that if there is any sort of chance at revolution, it is in the non-subject, basically the decommodification of the self, because the argument here by Robin is that even when we're not working, all of our activities are being commodified, whether it be through like lifestyle, marketing, and consumerism. So I thought there were a couple great quotes in Robin's piece, actually arguing in favor of the traditional labor theory of value, in the sense that the traditional worker in the traditional workplace is still having their value and their labor power extracted for the profit of the capitalist. But Robin goes on to say that, with the sublimation of the factory, its strict regimentation of production softened, but its aim, the extraction of labor power and the production of value, has not softened. And so piecework refined in its modern form on the floor of the Amazon fulfillment center, the payment by commission of the semi-employed Uber driver, and the constant stress and obsession with productivity that permeates the home-turned-office differ only in form, not function. So the general contours of the mechanisms by which the factory is merged with the whole of society, beginning with the ethical injunction to be productive, a social relation dominated by capital that is nonetheless divorced from any immediate relationship to the primary production process. And then Robin goes on to say, as commodity production yields social reproduction, the mapping of social life extends control and piecework into our individualized self-labor. We create ourselves as social commodities, and our attention and interest is bought and sold. We are convinced to reduce our lives to the order of utility and instrumentality. So I think this is very important to note, because the argument here is that there's all this labor extraction, this value extraction of the individual's labor still, and this is happening outside of the workplace, almost in like a constantly happening, very holistic way that capitalist has like a very good stronghold on basically every aspect of our lives. And they quote, "We become purchasable and acquirable collections of commodified traits existing for the sole purpose of conspicuous transactions, a living currency on markets of human social relations." They go on to say that work itself has become diffuse, and workers no longer form a coherent social body based on their identification with their labor. See, this is where I strongly disagree. I think there is, or at least can still be, a strong working class or worker group identity, but Robin thinks that the working class views work as something that is constantly at risk of slipping away from them, if it has not already. And as Robin notes, as the wage system shrinks and begins to implode, capital finds new markets. We have the mass proliferation of marginal employment and commodification of basic living activities. Everything is integrated into a self-propagating market. And again, I agree that everything is integrated into this sort of self-propagating market. That's what I meant when I said capitalism has this like sort of holistic hold on us outside of the traditional workplace. But I think what really does hold most people together is still this difference, this class distinction between employer and employee. And I guess I'll recap by just saying what I more or less said in the beginning, which is that I think this piece from Robin is interesting. I think it makes some good, strong arguments for the broader extraction of the individual labor outside of the work or employment in the traditional working class, still directly tied to capitalism's developmental core, though. But again, there is a serious concern here that this is a direct abandonment of the worker-employee identity and the worker-employee as a revolutionary subject against the capitalist owner-employer. It makes this, Robin and Deleuze, I guess, sort of make this argument that there's no point in looking at the working class or looking at labor as a revolutionary subject or a subject possible to, bring about the end of capitalism. We need to turn elsewhere. We need to turn into ourselves. We need to decommodify ourselves. We need to make ourselves non-subjects so that the market can't reach us, so that the commodification processes in capitalism's arms cannot reach us. And basically we have to work within ourselves and with each other around us in a community way that is setting up alternatives to capitalism. I think that's great. I do, honestly, and I think you should, take part in mutual aid and participate in self-critique and be aware of these sort of market mechanisms all around us. Absolutely. But to turn around and then be like, all right, we should just forget about the working class, that abandons a very clear fact to me, which is simply the employer and employee, or the owner and the worker relationship that still very much exists, that is intrinsic to capitalism, and that is more or less the base of class struggle, which should not be forgotten. That's really all I have to say today. Thank you.